Danganronpa.
New Dwayne just dropped, and I'm loving it. I just googled Dwayne GIF, and I found this guy. He's amazing. He'll be our little companion for the stream, I think. Welcome, everyone, to another review stream. My elusive, rare review streams. Grapefruit, would you kill in the killing game? Welcome one and all. This is gonna be kind of a little relaxed reviews stream. I feel the need to do a little special intro every time, just to explain exactly what's gonna be going down. I know this kind of stream isn't gonna be for everyone, so we just want to be upfront about that sort of thing. I'm going to be looking at a spreadsheet for the next hour or so. Or at least that's the plan. And I'm sorry to anybody in... Well, first off, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's look at this lovely art here for a second. This is from Antisocial, who submitted this ages ago. I've been using some very old art lately for just various streams. It was just I talked about Danganronpa on stream, and they made this... because they knew that I had been playing the games. It's a very cute little, just a simple little sprite edit. I am no longer Poggers, and I'm devastated by this news. And now I'm going to... What do you guys think my punishment would be if I got caught in Danganronpa, right? Got any ideas? The gamer one is already taken. Okay. But thank you, Antisocial, for this beautiful art. However, I will be using Dwayne's spin most of the stream. So that we can also see the spreadsheet. So I'm going to be looking at this spreadsheet for the next, like, hour or so. It's probably just going to be mostly this screen. You'd be forced to play Danganronpa. Put into a blender. Oh, God. So I'm sorry to anybody that I edged, because last time I was like, oh, you know, the next stream of this, I'm probably going to do the Dark Souls games. But I kind of don't... I wasn't feeling it today, but I was feeling doing one of these streams. So instead, the title of the stream, of the VOD, is going to be a bit of a misnomer, because we are mostly going to be talking about games that I haven't streamed, but that I would like to chat about, even though the name of the series is reviewing all the games I've streamed. So, yes, this is a bunch of games that me and Bella played together, off stream, and also Overwatch, but all the rest of these are just, yeah. And these are games that I said here, you know, won't stream for the foreseeable future for various reasons. A lot of these are very text-heavy games that I just don't think would be very good for streaming, but I'd like to talk about them anyway. Basically, I've got this huge spreadsheet of all the games that I've streamed, and I made like an alternate version of it for me to put down some little casual personal reviews. These are just meant to be my own opinion on a game. That in no way are these scores meant to be really thought about too much or considered, let alone considered objective truth. It is just my personal experience with a game, is listed here. And then there's, yeah, these NA ones are ones that, they're mostly just arcade games that I didn't have the necessary hardware to actually play properly. But today we are going to be just talking about these. I believe, like, maybe I'll do Mario Wonder or something so that the VOD title isn't a complete misnomer. I'm just going to be sitting here talking about these games. I think I'm probably going to go a little more in-depth about these games because, you know, normally with a review, I'm like, oh, well, you can just go watch the VOD if you want to really see my experience with a game, you know. But these, we don't have the VOD, so I'm going to have to be a little more descriptive, I think. And also, I think it's just kind of funny. Don't you guys think it's a little odd for a guy like me to be talking about Danganronpa? Like, I'm sure for some of you, you're like, the fuck do you mean Grapefruit has played Danganronpa? Like, what the hell? So, yeah, basically, if you've not seen one of these streams before, though, I'm just going to be sitting here looking at a spreadsheet. I encourage you to put on your own background music if you want. I'm going to be listening to, I'm pretty sure, ASMR or my own music playlist, but I like to leave it silent in the background so that you guys can listen to your own stuff. I fixed the headphone issue, so we will no longer have the little knocking sound is gone, which I think was there for the last couple of review streams and probably was extremely annoying. So if you're ever going back and watching those old ones and it has that knocking sound, seriously, just put on some background music and it'll basically cover it up, I think. Anyway, I liked the knocking. This is the thing, whenever literally 100% of all audio issues that I've ever had, when I fix them, there's always people coming out of the woodwork going, oh, I liked it, oh, I got used to it. And it's like, sorry, bro, I'm not gonna leave the shitty audio in because you got, like, Stockholm syndromed by it. Anyway, isn't this, somebody said rotating child fuels me. This is also just gonna be me sitting here shooting the shit. Like, I might get off topic in these streams, just so you know. I love this fucking animation. It's so good. It's so in right now. Dwayne's so popular, so in right now. I just noticed that it's a little. Hold on. See the top of the spreadsheet here? It's a little hokey cokey. I know I should have fixed this before the stream started, but that seems it sucks because when I'm adjusting something like this, it, like, there's a little, like, border to the screen that, like, covers up the lines that I need to see. Okay, that looks fine. It's got a little tiny border at the top, but I don't really care. Really, if you're sitting here avidly watching the screen during these streams, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. Go, like, put it on some headphones and, like, do chores or something. I don't know. Or just sit here avidly watching the screen. I can't tell you how to live your life. I did webcam with one of these once, and then my webcam broke. So, you know. Okay. Let's talk games. Overwatch. This is a situation kind of like TF2, where I had a great deal of fun playing this game, but I also don't know if I really would recommend it. Because, so, a little bit of history, a little bit of background. I played a fuck ton of Overwatch, and by a fuck ton, I really mean, like, probably 100 or 200 hours during the summer of 2015, or whatever year Overwatch came out. It was very, very fun. Everybody knows Overwatch. Very, very fun arena shooter in the same style as TF2, hero-based, class-based arena shooter. I found that it became less and less enjoyable over time. It was very fun in sort of the early experimental era when, for instance, you know, you could pick everyone on a team could be Winston, you know, or there were no limits. Apparently nowadays, don't they, like, force you to abide by proper team composition, right, or something like that? It's sort of got that, like, MOBA-esque quality where angry, people are going to say this sounds bitter, but like angry sweat lords, in a way sort of ruined the game for me. And, this is sort of an issue that I have with a lot of multiplayer games, is that, like, I love single player games because it's like, it is a curated experience that is designed for me to have fun. And it's never like, oh, I'm having fun at the expense of somebody else having fun, or somebody else is responsible for making the game enjoyable, providing an enjoyable challenge that is like overcomeable and not frustrating. So really, you guys may notice that I'm not big on multiplayer just generally. Like, I much prefer single player experiences, because I hate that feeling of other people are responsible for making the game enjoyable for me, and I'm responsible for making the game enjoyable for them. So in the early days of Overwatch, when it was just a bunch of people just dicking around, that was very fun. And then sort of over time, it just became, it was probably partially that I just sort of got bored of the game, but also I just felt like me as a casual sort of like goo enjoyer of the game, I was sort of a minnow in a pool of sharks. Like, there's this whole culture surrounding games like this, and nowadays you have like Valorant and like Apex Legends and shit, of like people who play these games for like 10 hours a day or whatever. And I was playing this game a lot in that one summer, but I just at a certain point felt like my enjoyment of the game was a completely different type of enjoyment to other people that other people had, and it got that sort of like heated, like, I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have seen those like Donkey videos where it just shows so many people, just bitter, angry people, like yelling over their fucking mics in Overwatch. And I just will never understand how you can get that heated and like pissed about a game so frequently and still play the game. It was filled with a bunch of people who didn't even seem like they were enjoying their time playing the game. And I'm like, why are you still playing? If it's such an upsetting experience for you, whatever. So it just kind of fell off for me, and I feel like jumping into it now would probably be horrible. Like, even for me, like jumping back into it now that there's the whole fucking Overwatch 2 debacle. Can you even play original Overwatch anymore? Genuine question. Or did they like kill it and make you buy Overwatch 2 or whatever? I mean, I say buy, you know what I mean. You can't. You literally can't play original Overwatch. Andrew was talking about this. Talk about the biggest bag fumble of all fucking time. Servers are down. That's so fucking stupid. It truly, like, I don't really know all the details about the Overwatch and Overwatch 2 situation, because I was already sort of sick of Overwatch by the time Overwatch 2 was like announced, and then by the time it came out, and everybody was saying that it's like riddled with issues, and it was just such a cynical move to sort of force people to swap over. Yeah, I guess Valve just did the same thing with Counter-Strike. Now, Counter-Strike, there's a fucking impenetrable first-person shooter. I say it would be hard to get into Overwatch. Holy fucking shit. So, yeah, if I were to, like, try to hop into Overwatch 2, it's like, my recommendation of Overwatch doesn't even matter anymore, because the game that I'm talking about here no longer exists in multiple senses. Where it's like, the player base is entirely different. I loved it when it was just casuals messing around. I don't know. I played a lot of Junkrat because I hate aiming. I will readily admit that I'm not very good at first-person shooters. I see footage of other people playing first-person shooters, and I know it's just skill, but it literally looks to me like people have like an aimbot on. It's like that, you know how some editors, I don't know what like program lets you do this, but you can do that thing where like you take footage of like somebody like moving around in the frame, and you tell the computer, okay, make it so that their face is in the exact center of the screen the entire time, and it like and it like computer calculates it so that their face is in the exact center of the screen even as they're like moving around. That's what other people's like FPS footage looks like to me, where the where it's like, how do you, like, while you're like moving around and they're moving around and their reticle is just like 100% of the time on top of the enemy's like face, and I'm like, that's not in my brain. I'll play Junkrat, thank you very much, you know. Who else did I play? Mercy, another no aiming character. Lucio, I really enjoyed. And, you know, let's talk about the actual game. I really loved the aesthetics of Overwatch. This was sort of, saying that feels bittersweet because Overwatch was kind of the patient zero of the dog shit, like, modern, like, e-girl gaming Fortnite Valorant bullshit style. I don't know. It's I remember enjoying the aesthetics of it genuinely though when it came out, even though now when you look at it, you're just your brain is just like filled with like the million other things that now have this exact same style. And like this sort of, again, in the future I hope we come up with some kind of like concise good term for this kind of like visual aesthetic, where it's like, the tech armor, you know. Do you know what I mean? The like Marvel tech armor, it's a skin tight suit and it's got little armor and it's got little lines on it everywhere. And do you guys know what I'm talking about? I know it's so vague. We need a term for this. That's why we need a term. So, but I thought, you know, on release, it had a really nice personality. I genuinely, some of the characters, I was like, man, I love these characters. I love how, in the same sense as TF2, their personalities sort of shine through just sparse amounts of like voice lines and gameplay and animations. I really enjoyed that quality. Yeah, a bunch of meaningless technological detail. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Somebody said, I know exactly, but possess none of the words to elaborate. Yeah, I don't know. So, but I do remember really genuinely enjoying it. It's what a complicated issue it is saying if I recommend this game or not. Because, again, you literally and figuratively cannot play the game that I'm currently talking about. Like, you can't go back in the past, and the servers are literally shut down. So, I'm gonna go ahead and say yes, but this game no longer exists. And that's gonna be my little edgy asterisk there. Yeah, I guess I could just put an NA for the rating. I don't know. It is hard to rate this game out of 10, though. Also, I really love the music of Overwatch. I maybe this is like cringe to say, but I remember frequently getting chills watching the play of the game sequence, you know, wah, 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 and there's like some cool fucking like multi-kill going on or something, and it's got that really hype music. I don't know, that was very fun to me. So everything about the presentation of Overwatch, the gameplay was really solid, the animations are great, the characters are great. Too bad it is patient zero for so many cancers of gaming. And of course it had like loot boxes and shit, which it by no means invented. That's, you know, been a plague for a while. Yeah, the audio design was great. Just in general, like the sound effects. I remember loving Lucio's alt fire, that like pulse wave that like knocks people back. Tons of fun abilities too. I remember when they patched it so that Junkrat had 2 of his like trip mine things, and it was like all my Christmases had come at once. It was like, I couldn't believe they put that in the game. That was pretty soon before I stopped playing it generally. Anyway, and like the maps were cool. I don't know, I love the look of like Ilios and shit. 8.5. when in doubt, 8.5. So that's my feelings on Overwatch. Complicated feelings, complicated situation with that game. man, yeah, I just loved like jumping miles in the air, double explosion jumping with Junkrat was so fun. Uh, okay, let's talk Omori. It is time, Omorers. Uh, I guess so. I prepared a little. Where is it? When I'm talking about spoilers, because this is kind of a game that's hard to talk about without talking about spoilers, I will put this on screen, but I'm not going to talk about spoilers yet. So, Omori. This was a game that I remember, however fucking long ago that trailer came out. It must be literally like 10 years at this point. Or it's coming up on that. Maybe like 7 years was that original trailer. Well, I don't know. Huge gap between the original trailer being released and the game actually coming out. And I remember being extremely excited when I saw the first trailer. And like I downloaded that whole like album, the Boen album that had My Time on it and stuff. And then in the time it took for the game to come out, I just got so cooled down on it. And by the time it came out, I like looked at like release trailers and I was like, oh, actually this doesn't really look like my kind of thing. But then I met Isabel, my lovely girlfriend, and Omori is one of her favorite games. And she was like, you gotta play Omori. We're gonna play Omori. And so she sat me down in front of her laptop and we played Omori. I played it on PC and Switch, actually. We did like the different routes. And I gotta say, this is a fantastic video game. I was so, for some reason I was so like averse to it before actually playing it, but actually having played it, it is an extremely cool game. Yes, it is a quirky Earthbound style RPG, but you know what? I think that's a tried and true formula at this point. And yes, it is subversive. Yes, it is quirky. But there's nothing wrong with that. And that's not a crime. I think it carries that sort of tone very well while also sort of doing its own thing. Basically, to anybody who doesn't know, this is a RPG, sort of a bright, imaginative, colorful RPG about kids playing in sort of an imagination-themed land. And I guess I can't go too far into, you know, the nature of the world that they're in without being spoilery, but they're in this sort of like fantasy world, and it's like a turn-based RPG with a visual novel kind of aspects to it, where there's a lot of dialogue, but the characters are very fun. I enjoy hearing what they have to say. I enjoy seeing the dynamics of the different characters in the group. There's lots of fun, funny little side characters too, in the style of an Earthbound type of game. One thing I'd like to say, I'm going to try to like avoid spoilery talk before I have to put the like notice up. I would say play this game. Like if you liked, again, I'm going to go ahead and say if you like Off or Undertale or Earthbound, you know, I think this is going to be right up your alley. It's got a bit of a slow start, I think, so you may need to push past just a slightly slow start, but really not even that slow. I think this game has fantastic RPG, like turn-based combat, basically. And I'm not an expert on RPGs in the slightest. I've barely played any, so I'm not an expert. I'm not an authoritative voice on this at all. But I genuinely found the mechanics of Omori's combat to be really, really cool and fun. And like kind of gimmicky, but not so gimmicky that it's like overbearing and just dominates the gameplay. It's that perfect mix of, I think, nice, thoughtful RPG combat with the amount of creativity that I enjoy having. Like the amount, the potential, the capacity for creativity is really, really, really satisfying and cool. I love all the systems, the way that each character has kind of their own specialties, which I know is not anything new for RPGs, but I just found it really satisfying and fun. And I thought the game was a perfect amount challenging without being too difficult. And by the way, I don't want to hear a single one of you saying that I'm just being nice to this game because my girlfriend likes it, okay? Nobody's said that yet, but I just want to preempt anybody who may be getting that thought in their head, because I genuinely really loved this game. I was shocked at how much I liked it. One thing that I think I didn't really, that I guess if I had to find a criticism for it, the overworld like sprite art is a little basic, I think, at times. Like, the environments are cool, but the like character sprites just look kind of, I want to say DeviantArt. I want to say Gaia Online, actually. I don't know. So you're just being nice to your girlfriend because she likes Omori. So I guess that's like a slight criticism, is I'm not a big fan of the character sprites, but like that's not a big deal. And you know, mostly you're going to be looking at their talk sprites, not their overworld sprites. Yes, the RPG makerness kind of shows. I sort of wish it had a little bit more of a unique sort of pixel art style. But again, the character portraits, the other art in game is great. It's got this sort of there's pixel art, and then there's this kind of like hand drawn sort of like storybook kind of style to it that I really enjoy, that I think looks great. Again, trying to like think of stuff I can say without spoiling. I think we're approaching. Yeah, the music's fantastic. One of the best soundtracks I think I've ever heard. Genuinely, even if you're not going to play this game, you should check out the soundtrack, because it's got lots of bangers. One thing I kind of love in a game is when it is willing to have absolute banger of a song that plays for like 20 seconds in game sometimes. It's just full of bangers, and it's one of those soundtracks that's like filled with bangers and long. Like, there are so many goddamn songs in this game, especially considering, I guess, slight spoiler warning, that there are different routes to take in the game. Okay, so I think if you don't want to hear spoilers, just hop off here, or like mute, or like skip forward in the stream until you don't see this little like warning that I'm going to put up. Check out the game. Definitely would give it a recommend, but I am now going to talk about spoilers for a bit. So, this game, a lot of people say that it's like a psychological horror game, which I don't really like. I get what they're saying when they say that, but I also think that's a bit of a silly thing to say. It definitely has horrific elements to it, but like the bulk of the game is bright and cheerful, and you know, some of it's kind of doing that in order to contrast the horrific parts, you know, because the whole like a crux of the story. And by the way, if you're just here, if you're listening to this part without having played the game, you know, go on with your bad self, you absolute madman. But it's like, I love the aspect where the main character did something horribly fucked up in the past, or participated in something horribly fucked up in the past, and is now kind of trying to just recede into this imaginary world to sort of just block off any memories of that happening. And I really enjoy how there are like little things that slip through the cracks. So basically, the first time you play through this game, you're going to see a bunch of little weird things from time to time where you're like, what the hell was that? Like, what was the significance of that? And then you learn the horrible, horrific, fucked up shit that happened near the end of the game. And then this is something I think is beautiful about this game. I think games that have multiple routes, Undertale being another good example, you need things to sort of spice up different runs of the game, and one of the most genius ways of doing that is having something that doesn't make sense the first time you play the game, and then you see the exact same thing after having witnessed the end of the game, you know, on your second playthrough, and all of a sudden, you know, that something that was hanging underneath a tree in that one little secret in that there's that one little, this is just a random example, that one little room that you walk into and there's just a single tree in the middle of the room and you see something underneath it and it like disappears after 2 seconds. And that little moments like that have this like insane impact on you after you've beaten the game, but the first time you see it you're like, huh, I don't even know what that was. So I think there's a beautiful artistry to the way that you can take the exact same content of the game and have it, you know, on a further playthrough when you're trying to do a different route or whatever. Things have added significance to them. And it's like watching The Sixth Sense after you know the twist at the end of The Sixth Sense. Sorry, I should put up a spoiler alert for The Sixth Sense too. So I think that aspect of it is really, really cool. I love the alternate path in the game. It was very interesting. I like that not only does this game have basically, I think, 2 or 3 main endings, but it's also got a bunch of little weird endings. Like there's, whenever you're in white space and you need to get out, you do it by stabbing yourself. You like go into the menu and select stab, and there's a part in the real world where the stab option just appears in your menu, and you can just select that, and your character just stabs themselves in the gut, and it like fades to black, and you just hear like siren sounds, and then it like rolls the credits. I kind of like those little weird endings. It reminds me of the neutral endings in Undertale. Yes, I'm sorry, I keep mentioning Undertale. Deal with it. So. Very neat game. I think something that I appreciate about so many games that I love is lots of little cool details here and there, you know, little special interactions that you can do. That's another thing that spices up a second playthrough of a game when you're trying to do an alternate route, is little details that are easy to miss, but there's so many of them that you are bound to see some of them, you know, and like stuff like black space. I remember Isabel and I messed around in black space for so long because there's just so much weird shit in there that you can find. And that stuff is just excellent. I love that shit. That was like the widest way to say it. So excellent. Really, really cool. I enjoyed, you know, one of the things that I was wary about, one of the reasons I didn't really want to play this game when I saw like some of the later trailers was I thought it kind of looked like sort of like a shallow, like edgy game. You know, the main character with like the blank expression holding the like suburban edgy, like, oh, I've got a blank dead-eyed expression and I'm holding the kitchen knife and like I'm gonna stab someone, blah blah blah. And really it doesn't fall into that sort of vibe. It really is kind of its own thing. The main character is kind of the weakest character for me, but they're mostly, that doesn't mean that they're a terrible character. I just liked them the least because some of the things that they didn't really like make a ton of sense. But I was shocked at how not cringe the like dark stuff was, because I was really expecting the dark stuff to be cringe, but it was actually handled very tastefully in a very interesting way. There's lots of cool, creepy little sequences in the game. I love the parts where you're fighting, throughout the game, you fight your different phobias, like the fear of heights and the fear of drowning and fear of spiders and shit like that, and you sort of see these physical representations of your fears. I think all that stuff was handled in a way, like it so easily could have been cringe, but it wasn't. And that's such an accomplishment. I don't know. So what else is there to talk about? Fantastic music. The sprites I could take or leave, but the hand-drawn art is really nice and charming. The characters are lovely. I really enjoy the depth of the plot. I really enjoy the gameplay. Seriously, this was like, I'm sorry, Isabel, I'm not quite going to give it a 10, but this was like a 9.5 experience for me. Incredible, incredible video game. Oh, no asterisk, no asterisk. Really, really, really fun. Kind of blew my expectations out of the water. Uh, okay, we're gonna take this down. Maybe I can make a timestamp or something to show when I'm taking the spoiler alert off. Yeah, there are little flaws. But yeah, fantastic game. Lots of cool twists and turns. Could have been so cringe, but wasn't. I'm not gonna go into the behavior of the creator, Omocat, who has said some weird things in the past. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to review the creator of the game. People were talking about that. I don't know. I don't really care. The game is great. Omori's all right, but it's no Dr. Mario. I was thinking about this recently. Yeah, and the boss rush stuff is great. Right. We played the Switch version that has exclusive boss rush stuff that was also very, very cool. Anyway, oh fuck, I feel like I lost my train of thought. I was gonna say something. It probably wasn't important. Okay. Right, Dr. Mario. So, sort of a running joke that I originally gave Dr. Mario a 10 out of 10. NES Dr. Mario, a 10 out of 10. And then I was like, yeah, let's simmer down. Because I was on this like weird logic of like, there's nothing I dislike about it, thus it is a 10 out of 10. And I love Dr. Mario, but now I think it's funny because Isabel and I play Dr. Mario 64 a lot, and Dr. Mario 64 is just like an objectively better version of Dr. Mario, so it's like a fucking 15 out of 10 then. If Dr. Mario is a 10 out of 10, then Dr. Mario 64 is like a 600 out of 10. Okay, let me take a drink of water. I'm getting a little dry here. Okay. Now, West of Loathing. I'm not going to have a ton to say about this one. This is a comedy game that has kind of like webcomic vibes to it. I don't know if the people who made this, I would not be surprised if the people who made this game had also made a webcomic in the past. And I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way. A lot of webcomics are dog shit, but West of Loathing it's a comedy game. And it's like a stick figure, like the graphics are hand drawn, but everything looks like doodles on like a child's sketchbook, basically. Where it's all very sort of basic lines and stick figures. And it's like an RPG where you are a cowboy in a weird fictional cowboy world going around doing missions. And it's kind of a basic RPG experience to a certain degree. Like, I didn't feel like I had much agency in, building my character a certain way. Not that I really needed to do that, but just gameplay-wise, it was kind of basic. There were a couple of combat challenges where it actually made me think, but really not very much. A lot of it was just sort of standard stuff, but I think really where this game excels is in the comedy. It genuinely was quite funny. And there's also, there's another game, Shadows Over Loathing or something like that. Maybe I'm confusing that title with another one, but there's like a horror-themed one that came out after this that I haven't played. But it is a very funny comedy game. It's pretty light, like, entertainment. It did not make me rethink various aspects of my life or anything. It was just neat little funny quirky game with lots of sort of subversive jokes and funnily written dialogue, basically. And it's got that very the cowboy setting, the Wild West setting in general is a great breeding ground for jokes. It's just like a generally kind of humorous subject, and I think they milked it pretty well. In the end, it's not the deepest experience. It didn't have, it certainly doesn't have incredible music or graphics, but it was neat. Sorry, somebody said, WOL, abbreviated, and for a second I was like, World of Light? No, not World of Light. Yeah, it's one of those games you have to let yourself enjoy for the laugh. So neat game. I guess I would recommend. It's definitely not I'm not like blown away or anything. Colors Weave, Triplets Born. I'm trying to think what to give it. Because it's like everything about it, I feel like it succeeds in everything it sets out to do, but it's just like not a particularly ambitious game. I would give it like a 7. It was fine. Okay, now we're getting to the really juicy shit here. Phoenix motherfucking Wright, Ace Attorney. This was a life changer. This was another one that Isabel, I think just randomly one day was like, hey, let's play Ace Attorney. And I was like, okay, I guess. And for most of my life, I always I knew about Ace Attorney, of course. Objection. Objection. You know, and it's like I thought of it in my head as like a meme game, as like, oh, it's just like a silly, over the top Japanese game that I never even like spared it a thought, basically, because I was like, it's just a silly, goofy joke game, and it's actually extremely good. I'm here to tell you, check out Phoenix Wright. This was, I guess I should mention on this spreadsheet, but I didn't, that this was played on the, HD remaster collection on Steam. Basically, these games, this series, or at least the original trilogy, actually, were all the original 3 games on GBA, or was it just the first one? Because the lineage goes, at the very least, the first game was like a GBA Japanese exclusive, I think, and then it got all 3 were on GBA, okay, and then it got ported over to the DS. They sort of remade them for the Nintendo DS, and that's when they came over to America. And then there's the HD remake where they basically traced over the sprites for the DS versions and published it on Switch and Steam and shit. So I played the version on Steam. I think I would have liked to have a some sort of option, some remakes and remasters of games have an option to swap back to the original game's graphics. And maybe it would have looked bad on the big screen, but I kind of wish I could have swapped back to the original pixel art sprites. There's something slightly weird about the hand-drawn traced sprites in the remaster, but it's really not anything worth getting bent out of shape over. Some of them look slightly uncanny. So that's a little bit of history. Basically, these games are fantastic visual novel mystery games where each game is 4 or 5 cases. Each case is a murder. I think in the original trilogy, literally every single case involves a murder. There's slight spoiler warning. There's one that at the beginning doesn't have a murder, and then a murder is sort of revealed halfway through. Oh, sorry, I'm getting acid reflux here. You're basically investigating, you play as a lawyer, but really you're also a detective. I think there are many things about these games that, of course, do not reflect real-world law and due process and shit. Normally, I think lawyers do not do any investigating and are not allowed to poke around on crime scenes. I'm no legal nut myself, but there were some things where I'm like, that's probably not how it works in real life. But these games are fantastic. They're not without their flaws, but overall, I think it has a really strong core of fun characters that you like watching talk to each other. I love Phoenix. I love Maya. I love Mia. I love Detective Dick Gumshoe. God damn, what a great character. Edgeworth is fantastic. Edgeworth, Edgeworth is the one other character that I knew before going into this, and I was always like, oh, he seems like kind of a one-dimensional character, but he is actually so dimensional and so fun. He's actually a fantastic fucking character with a name like Edgeworth. I didn't think, I love Detective. Yeah. Do you think he's a detective with a name like Detective Dick Gumshoe? 3 different words that mean detective. So fantastic, really fun characters with really cool, expressive, limited animations. But I think with the style that they use of characters sort of like snapping from pose to pose, I think they convey a ton of personality. Even the side characters are great. It's really well written, and by that I really mean really well translated. Specifically, I think these games must be, with any visual novel, it must be a Herculean task to translate these games from Japanese into English and have it still feel good. And they killed it. They absolutely nailed it on the translation. Everything feels so natural. Even the stuff that feels like it should have been jankily translated, they just nailed it. I really can't think of a single moment that feels like a clunky, weird, like, I don't know. I never felt that like culture shock that I feel in some other Japanese things where it's like, oh, clearly this is like a botched transformation. I don't know. And yeah, somebody said it's a wonder that all the puns work. There's so many fucking puns that they had to like translate over and make work. I gotta blow my nose. One sec. So fantastic writing, really lovable characters. I love the animations. I love the music. The music is great. I believe the soundtrack of the HD version is just the soundtrack for the DS games directly ported over. I don't know if they like remastered it in any sort of way. I think it's literally just the DS versions, but they sound great. Nice little sort of funky, weird, mysterious tunes most of the time, and then in the court scenes, when you make a good point or you present a cool, like a piece of evidence or whatever that like turns the whole case on its head, and it plays that like cornered, like pressing pursuit music or whatever, that is just such a fantastic feeling. Those like soaring melodies are so great. It's pure dopamine, like solving a court case in these games. I think some of the lesser parts of this series are the actual like process of logically working out how, like, investigating and working out, how a particular crime went down. It's hard to judge because, of course, everybody's going to have their own unique experience. I'm sure there are plenty of things that feel like an insane logical leap to me, but that seem perfectly normal to other people, and vice versa as well. But sometimes, there are the occasional moments in these games where it's like you're bumbling around from investigation site to investigation site, just going, what the fuck am I looking for? Like, I don't... Sorry, I'm listening to ASMR, and the person, they've just been silently rubbing my ears this whole time, and they just leaned into the microphone and went, your ears are so dirty. It's like jump scared me. Okay. Oh, you touch my ears with your dirty hands. Your ears are so dirty. Okay. Anyway. So there are some frustrating moments in these games where it can be like, I'm stumbling around from investigation site to investigation site going, what the fuck do I click on? What random piece of evidence am I supposed to present to the, like, what random NPC that's going to make the plot move forward? And, it can be frustrating, but I also think there's no shame in looking up a guide in these parts. I don't know. I feel like if you're going to play these games, maybe some people just breeze through the whole thing and perfectly understand absolutely everything that's happening. But with the goofy-ass murders that happen, it's not... Okay, stop talking. Stop talking in my ears. I don't pay you to chat. I pay you to rub my ears. Okay. I went to a different video. And yeah, like, you can save scum. Yeah, this is not Bella, by the way. Bella said, I ain't even home, he's just ASMR pilled. Also, I'm sorry, there's a little bit of fluff on my microphone. give you a little ASMR of your own there, picking it off. Okay. He's in denial about his dirty ears. Yeah, I don't want to face the harsh reality of my filthy fucking ears. So sometimes the logic can feel a little hokey. I think if I were to say anything to prep people for playing these games, which I would wholeheartedly recommend, this is a series that, like, I wish I could wipe all memory of it from my mind so that I could just enjoy it all again. It's that good. I will say, prepare yourself to see a lot of crimes and cases that are riddled with coincidence. There's just a lot of things that happen. Like, you should be ready for instance, maybe this is slightly spoilery, but really, you'll figure this out by the time you're like halfway through the first game. Every single case, or just about every single case, you're gonna one of the people who comes up to the witness stand during the, like, you know, witness testimony in the trial is going to turn out to be the real culprit. And that's what we call a turnabout, I guess. Isabel told me that's like the definition of what a turnabout is when a court case starts, and during the case it is revealed that it's actually someone else who was the culprit. And the staggering amount of coincidence that always happens, there is always somebody brought up on the witness stand who turns out to be the real killer or the real, you know, criminal. It's a little silly if you, like, think about it too hard. You just kind of need to accept that, you know? And a lot of it is less about knowing who did it than how they did it, you know? So, and I think in the very first, actually, no, never mind. I was going to say in the very first case, the guy's name is, like, Mr. Did It, but I'm pretty sure his name is Mr. Saw It. He's, like, the witness, and his name is Mr. Saw It, which is funny anyway. Lots of silly pun names in this series, by the way. And then there's just some cases in particular got kind of frustrating. Turnabout Big Top in the second game, I think, was a low point, just because of how much coincidence is in that case. And it's like, for that murder method to go down and for the witnesses to have seen what they saw, it's like such a fucking cosmic coincidence that everything that happened. I don't know. Somebody said also don't play the Miles games. I've heard nothing but good things about the Miles Edgeworth games. That's the first time I've ever heard anyone say anything negative about them. Anyway, fantastic games. I think now we can kind of go into the minutia of the individual games. They're all, like, similar in the broad strokes. I think one gripe that I'd like to get out of the way... Oh, sorry, I got, like, the hiccups. The one thing that pisses me off about this series is that they fucked up the names. And I don't know specifically how, like, the translation works with, like, you know, what did these names mean? Because clearly, you know, something like Justice for All is, like, a pretty American statement, liberty and justice for all. So I don't know what that meant, what that translated over from in Japanese, but these titles, man, they're swapped. Why is it not, like, anyone, literally anyone? It's like if you handed like a fucking 5th grader little slips of paper that have the names of these 3 games on them, and you told them, okay, order these, this is 3 games in a series, order them in what the order should be. It would obviously, anyone could tell you this. Ace Attorney, Trials and Tribulations, Justice for All. How is Justice for All the second game in the series? And then Trials and Tribulations is the big finale of the game. Like, what? How did they fumble that bag? Huh? Somebody said that in Japanese, the games are just numbered. That's interesting. They fumbled that so fucking hard. What do you mean? Trials and Tribulations is the big finale. Whatever. It's a very petty complaint. But why did they do that? I would love to know the circumstances that led them to thinking that this was okay. Anyway, basically, I think out of these 3 games, I like the first the most, the third the second most, and the second the least. They're all great. I think the first game just has a great... If you're going to play any of these games, for the love of God, play Ace Attorney itself. It's a perfect... I love the way that it like ramps up the scale and sort of intensity of the cases with each case. I guess I won't go too far into spoilers, but it has a wonderful sense of like the stakes are pretty low in the first case. Then in the second case, it's like, whoa, okay, the stakes are higher now. And then the third case, it's kind of a plateau. And then the fourth case, it's like, whoa, the stakes are like wicked high now. This is so intense and so cool. And then there's the fifth case in the first game, which is actually a weird case of like... Originally, the GBA version of Ace Attorney only had 4 cases. And then when they made the DS versions, they made a 5th case for the first game. And that 5th case also, it fits right in. It's kind of funny because it has some mechanics that are unique to that case in the trilogy because they're things that were introduced way later in the series. Like investigation mechanics that don't exist in the rest of Ace Attorney, Justice for All, or Trials and Tribulations. Yeah, GBA Ace Attorney. That's like the original platform that Ace Attorney was on. It's pretty astounding they were able to make those games and make them look as good as they did on the GBA. But Case 1-5 is fantastic. I think it fits right into the game, and it fits right into that, like, holy fuck, the stakes are raised so high, but not raised so high that, it's, so, later, I guess slight spoilers, later when I get to Danganronpa and Persona, both of these, I know they're not very similar games, but they both have this issue, to me personally, of becoming a little overblown at the end, and, like, it has to be, like, they feel, some Japanese pieces of media, I feel like, in general, I don't mean to generalize, but this is a generalization, basically. It's just something, a trend that I've noticed over time, is that a lot of Japanese things have this need, they feel like they have this need to end with, like, the most huge, important conflict of all time. You're killing a god, you know, and it's like... Phoenix Wright, I feel like, did a great job, especially Ace Attorney, of ramping up the scale and ramping up the stakes without getting completely fucking overblown and ridiculous and feeling like it's just, like, lost all connection to reality. I don't know. So I think it does a really good job of ramping up the scale while being grounded still. I also think all 3 of these games, all the Ace Attorney games, do an amazing balancing act of making these games very silly and goofy, but also not being, like, tonally dissonant when there are murders involved. Like, they are very capable of getting real and being, you know, somber in tone or having deeper themes, having, you know, more mature stuff in them, but they also have goofy comedy characters that fit right in somehow, and I think that's such a difficult balancing act to keep up. Somebody said, I wish Danganronpa was good. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, they're just great games. Ace Attorney, I think, has, like, the most beautiful, like, again, that ramping up over time is just fantastic, and it's got so many fun characters and so many cool cases that I think if you're going to play any game in the series, play this. And if you're not hooked by the end of this, I don't know what you're doing, but I don't know. Just play this one, and then I'll be happy. So definitely, all 3 of these are going to get a recommend. Justice for All is a bit of a slog at times and has one of the worst cases in the series. And then the last case in this game also just drags on for a bit too long, and I don't really like the prosecutor character that is introduced and used for most of this game. She's just not very fun. She doesn't seem to have the same kind of depth that Edgeworth had. So that's why I rank this one slightly lower. I don't know. I'd probably give Ace Attorney, I'll give it a 9. Justice for All, I think I'll give like an 8. And then Trials and Tribulations, I'm tempted to also give a 9. I think, yeah. Let's also give that one a 9. Trials and Tribulations is, I think, a perfect finale to the trilogy. It sort of takes a bunch of different elements of the previous 2 games and mixes them together in a way that doesn't feel forced or weird. It just feels really thrilling and cool. And the new prosecutor in this third game is fantastic and iconic. I'm sure you've seen him, the guy with the like red visor who drinks coffee, and I love the fact that like literally genuinely he talks about coffee in probably like 70% of all the lines that he says in the series. Like, I would love to see some sort of statistic of how much this guy talks about coffee. Like, what percent of the sentences that come out of this guy's fucking gob are related to coffee? So great prosecutor, great characters, great cases, really nice finale. There's some stuff that happens in the last case that just sent chills down my spine. It was such a satisfying payoff for the series. Good shit. So I think that's about all that I have to say about these games. They are fucking great. I'm really glad I played them. This leads us to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. This is a... So, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's like the... I'm gonna get like some sort of like name thing fucked up here. I think it was just called The Great Ace Attorney. It was a 2-game long series that was released in Japan and was not ported over to English or not fully translated to English or released in English in some way for like some time. And then they released, it was like a 3DS series, and then they made, similar to the HD collection for the original trilogy, they made this sort of like HD version called The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles that's both games in one, and they translated it over to English. And these are great as well. Never officially translated till the Switch release, yeah. For both of them, or just one of them? I think both. So, these are also really cool games. Really, I'm talking about 2 games here, but they are so... It's basically just one long game if you're playing Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, specifically, which I guess all you English speakers will be doing. If you're going to be playing this, you're going to be playing this version. So it's basically like one really long Ace Attorney game, and it's set in like 1800s Japan/England. It's sort of there's a little bit of globe trotting. They trot a little bit. It's mostly set in like post-industrial Victorian England, and I remember sort of thinking, that sounds a bit like lame, I guess, but I remember actually really loving the historical aspect of these games. It's basically the same premise, you know. You are playing as an ancient... I don't think it's ever actually officially confirmed in the actual meat of the games that Ryunosuke Naruhodo is an ancient ancestor or an old ancestor of Phoenix Wright, but I think it is... in this game, there was this fucking like video that you can watch that is like a non-canonical court case between Phoenix Wright and Ryunosuke Naruhodo, and in that bit, they say something about how Ryunosuke is an ancient ancestor of Phoenix Wright. Naruhodo is Phoenix's surname in Japanese. Oh, okay. That checks out. Phoenix's name in Japanese is Ryuichi Naruhodo. Cool. Okay, I never knew that. To me, I thought that one little goofy video was how they confirmed that he was an ancestor. But anyway, these games have, I think, the exact same kind of charm that the previous Phoenix Wright games have. It has 3D character animation, but it's done in such a way that it's still very reminiscent. It's basically the same as the old ones where the characters snap between these different, very cool, like, dynamic poses. The animation is so, like, high quality, I think, too. And the character models look great. The character designs look great. Some of them are a little goofy. Actually, a lot of them are quite goofy, but again, they fit tonally in the world, which I think is great. I really enjoyed the historical aspect. There's a side character in this game, or in these games, called Sherlock Sholmes, who is a, Sherlock Holmes parody. I guess, actually, isn't it like the guy... I'm gonna totally expose myself as a fraud here, because I barely know about what I'm about to talk about, but it's like Arsène Lupin is this fictional character, like some like French fictional character, and is what Lupin III is based off of, actually. And the author that wrote the like Tales of Arsène Lupin also wrote about a character named Sherlock Sholmes, who was a Sherlock Holmes parody. So really, Sherlock Sholmes in this is more of a reference to those works than it is its own parody of Sherlock Holmes. But really, I'm sure we've all seen plenty of parodies of Sherlock Holmes because it's such a pervasive character. And we stand Sherlock Sholmes in this house. He's basically like a dumb himbo version of Sherlock Holmes. He's still intelligent, but he's so like bumbling, and he's very confident, and he's constantly, there's like an actual aspect of gameplay that's based around him going into a crime scene and making a bunch of fucking wild accusations, and then you basically have to go in and like correct all the bullshit that he got wrong. You have to like rein in his crazy, which is very fun. Those parts actually kind of dragged on a bit, but it's cute, and I love the character. He was a very fun sort of like companion, and I like all the main characters. Ryunosuke and oh fuck, what is the girl's name? It's like S something. Susato, Miss Susato. She was great. Something that I was kind of expecting going into this was for Ryunosuke to act exactly like Phoenix Wright and for Susato to act exactly like Maya, but really they're kind of their own characters, which I really enjoyed. Ryunosuke acts pretty similar to Phoenix Wright, but I liked that Susato was kind of her own character while still being sort of reminiscent of that sort of cute, sassy archetype of the previous Phoenix Wright games. What else is there to talk about here? I really enjoyed the overarching plot. There were a lot of great cases in this. I think the first game takes a couple of cases to like get really good, but by case 1-3 in the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, that's when I was hooked, and that's when it got like really interesting. It's got a couple of new mechanics, like the jury mechanic. When you come over to America, there's like jurors that you need to convince, and it's basically just witness testimony with extra steps. But that was a fun thing. Somebody said Van Zieks. Wasn't a big fan of Van Zieks. He kind of just felt like that was kind of a character. He didn't feel like Edgeworth again. He felt like worse Edgeworth. And he was interesting in his own way, but I wasn't a big fan of the prosecutor. He was kind of one note. I got so fucking sick of hearing him say, "Pray forgive the discourtesy of destroying my hallowed chalice. Here's a toast to our learned Japanese friend for being a dumbass." I don't know. He was just kind of an annoying, arrogant bastard. And then he got a little more interesting in the last couple of cases of the second Great Ace Attorney game. But I basically enjoyed these. I think there were a couple of things that I didn't quite like as much as the original trilogy. One thing is the music. I think, yeah, he does have some great... Van Zieks does have some great animations for sure, but just when he was talking, I was kind of like, okay, I get it. I think the music, while being cool and it's sort of, period appropriate to this old, like, sort of Victorian style, it just doesn't have that same, like, funky, driving beat that a lot of the songs in the original trilogy have. It's definitely kind of apples and oranges, but it was just something that the music kind of like got on my nerves in Great Ace Attorney Chronicles a little more than I just didn't like it quite as much as the original trilogy. I don't know. It's hard to describe. Yeah, fucking Gregson. Yeah, somebody asked, is Herlock supposed to be the parallel to Gumshoe, or is that someone else? No, you have Gregson, who is like the most British guy of all time. He works for London Yard. He's got a bowler cap and a mustache, and he literally is always holding a little like cone of fish and chips. He's always holding fish and chips, which I think is really funny. He's like the most stereotypically British character of all time. Or did I say London Yard? I meant Scotland Yard. Anyway, lots of fun little characters. There were some things about it I didn't like quite as much. I think the animation is incredible in these. That's something that's better than the old games. And yeah, I don't know. Definitely good. Definitely good. I'm going to give this a solid 8.5. There were some parts that kind of dragged on. It had the same sort of issue as the previous ones, where sometimes there were annoying moments that just felt kind of obtuse, like how was I supposed to know to do that really specific thing? It doesn't really suffer that much as much as the old ones in that regard, actually. It's a little more polished in that way. And the investigation mechanics are a little, there's like some quality of life shit. In the original trilogy, for instance, when you're going between investigation locations, you have to it's like you have to go through other locations individually, whereas in Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, you just pick a location from a giant list, and you don't need to waste time bumbling around between locations, and that's kind of nice. Okay. I guess that's all I have to say about it. I would say also, in terms of Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, in terms of the recommendation, I would not suggest playing this before the original trilogy. I would say absolutely start with Ace Attorney, and then if you don't get a kick out of that one, then I'm sorry, I guess the series just isn't for you. But then I would say do it in the order that I did it. Do Ace Attorney, Justice for All Trials and Tribulations, and then Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. I don't really know how the Apollo games fit into that necessarily, but I will be playing those. I might be streaming the first Apollo game, but I'm sort of leaning towards not doing that. When the Apollo trilogy collection comes out. So definitely don't start with Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. I mean, you could, but I just feel like that would be a bit of a weird experience. Not that I don't think you really need to know anything about the Phoenix Wright series to understand what's happening in the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Like, they don't really reference each other at all. But I don't know. It just feels strange. It just feels strange to play Great Ace Attorney Chronicles before the originals. Okay. I think we're done doing Ace Attorney. Hold on. I just need to sit here and just fucking relax for a second. Let's have a little interim.
Danganronpa.
I'm literally just gonna sit here and drink water for a second. Hope you guys are having a fun time. Relax, get your dirty ears rubbed a little bit. I'm just kind of like out of breath. Keep him there, I beg of you. Everybody do deep breaths with me, all right? In. Out. In. Out. Okay. I think I'm ready. Somebody said that was fucked up. I breathed in way too fast. Okay. Now I'm gonna mute my desktop audio and go back to someone touching my dirty ears. Oh yeah, by the way, isn't it super fun how YouTube finally overcame Adblock Plus and did that fucking annoying thing where they were like, yeah, so you get to watch 3 videos with your ad blocker on, and then we're sending a fucking Guido to your house to break your damn knuckles after the 3rd video. Anyway, so now I have ad block off for the time being until there's a new development. Might end up actually getting YouTube Premium, which sucks. Is it okay? Is this super entitled, or is it strange to think that maybe like if you have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, maybe you just get YouTube Premium? Wouldn't that be cool? Perhaps in a perfect world, but this is not a perfect world. Anyway, let's get on to I don't know, because it's like you're making money for the platform, and then I have to pay for the subscription service? I don't know. Fair but entitled. I don't know. I'm not sitting here like, crying and stomping that I don't have it, but I think that would not be an unreasonable thing. Okay. Let's talk about Danganronpa. This is another series of visual novels. I'm going to attempt to describe what this series is. This is a series that it gets really fucking complicated if you try to like go too in depth about explaining it. But basically, and I know this is going to be super fucking uncanny for some of you to hear, because I feel like, again, I'm like not the kind of guy that you would expect to play these games. It's kind of funny. Right after we were done playing the Ace Attorney trilogy, Isabel was like, "Oh, we should play Danganronpa." And after we were done playing Danganronpa, Isabel was basically like, "Yeah, sorry about that." After we're sitting there watching the credits of Danganronpa V3, and we're like, that wasn't amazing. But I do think playing this after playing Phoenix Wright was like the best frame of mind for me to be in while playing it. This is a series of visual novel murder mystery games where the premise is that there are a bunch of high school age students taken from a bunch of different schools across like the country or whatever, and they've been holed up in this one school that, and in the different games, in the second game it's on an island, but they're all still technically, it's like they go to the school and they get like teleported to the island. One second, I'm phlegmy. I'm already like going off track here. It's like they get a bunch of there's this fucking evil teddy bear that's half black and half white that gets all these students together in one place, and it's supposed to be like this super prestigious school where all like it's the people who go there are all people who have like the ultimate talent in something. So it's like people who are like the top of their field in a specific thing, like the ultimate baseball player, the ultimate swimmer, the ultimate fashion designer, the ultimate J-pop idol, stuff like that. One of them is like literally the ultimate like rich person. And they group all these kids together. There's usually a cast of like 16 or so students, and the teddy bear forces them to participate in what they call the killing game, which is basically, if you want, it's like they're all locked in to this school or to this environment, and they can't leave unless they kill somebody and get away with it. So, basically, the characters are incentivized to kill, not only by the fact that, they can escape by killing, but they also, there's little incentives that the teddy bear keeps giving them throughout the series, to sort of trick people into killing each other, basically. And it's like when a murder happens, as soon as somebody discovers the body, It's basically all these students are just sort of like fucking hanging out, being depressed in this school. And then a murder will happen. The body is discovered. There's a brief period of investigation. And then you go into a class trial where you basically, as the player character, have to convince the rest of the characters who did the murder and how they did it. And so... oh god, I guess that's the basic premise. And basically throughout the game, you are constantly going to be cucking people from being able to leave the school. Because the idea is that if you graduate from the school, if you kill someone and then get away with it, it's like at the end of the class trial, they all hold a vote. And if you escape that unscathed, then everyone else who voted wrong gets executed, and then you get to leave. But, you know, since you're playing the video game and you have to win to move forward, you're always going to see the person who committed the murder eventually get caught, and then they get put into this, like, horrific fucking punishment that's, like, they get executed in, like, a goofy way. So, and it's usually, like, thematic to their ultimate talent. So basically, somebody said, how can you talk so well? It's funny that you say that. I don't know if you're being sarcastic, because I was just thinking about how much I say and like and all those different things. So unless you're being sarcastic, I'm glad someone out there thinks I'm talking well. So that's the basic premise of the game. It's also got this sort of like social aspect, dating sim type aspect to it, where you can level up your social contacts with specific characters. You can talk to characters. You have like free time in a similar way to like Persona's free time, and you get to choose who you want to hang out with, and you can get special abilities by leveling up friendship with them and giving them gifts. Hilariously, if you fully level up somebody's friendship, you get their underwear. So that the creator of these games seems to think that is the ultimate, that is like the ultimate goal of any human relationship, is to get a pair of their dirty underwear. So that and that little thing, if I haven't talked much about like the tone of these games, that should inform you somewhat on the tone. Yeah, all students, by the way. That's the fuck receipt. Yeah, I don't know. These games are extremely Japanese, for better and for worse. I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about these games was genuinely a lot of the characters are just fun and likable. There's also usually in each game a handful of like 2 or 3 characters that are just the worst. And I think this is a series with a lot of plot twists and turns. The biggest plot twist in Danganronpa for me was after I beat the series and then I went online and looked at online discourse for these games, seeing that all the absolute dog shit worst characters in the games are without fail the most beloved ones. That was like, my jaw hit the fucking floor. Like, Byakuya, guys? Byakuya? You liked Byakuya. I'm talking to a complete straw man here. Assuming anybody out there is a Byakuya simp. See, I liked Nagito. Nagito was like the better version of the shitter character, but it's like the first game has Byakuya, the third game has Kokichi, and those are both such an example of like the Japanese like edgelord character who is so committed to being an edgelord that their actions just defy common sense. And it's like, oh, it's a while ago I like tweeted about like, I hate when they just have like a crazy character in anime or whatever that's just, their actions just don't need to make sense. Like they basically just, you can just do whatever the fuck you want with the character because they're so irrationally evil. For instance, Byakuya in the first Danganronpa, there's a case where he just messes with some evidence just to be a dick. And it's just like, dude, I know it's like the writers of this game are like, oh, well, it's because he knew that you would solve the case. But I'm like, no. But for the character, did you know that you will fucking die if you don't solve this case? And you're messing with the evidence and like being obtuse in the trial. What the fuck? What the fuck? Oh, I was making it more interesting. Shut the fuck up. Like, oh my god. So some of the characters are completely fucking intolerable, and then a lot of the characters are nice and enjoyable, but man, those shitter characters really... And I know you gotta have some internal conflict in a group cast like that, but it's so cartoonishly done, and the characters, the evil or like the dickhead characters are such cartoonish dickheads. I don't know. Nagito in the second game fills that kind of role, I think, in a way better way. I think 2 is the best one. I'm actually not sure. 2 might be the best one. Not by a lot, but it might be. Anyway, so I've seen a lot of agreements, a lot of disagreements. It's not by a wide margin, folks. So what else is there to talk about? The dialogue can get a little exhausting. I think the class trials in particular, that was one aspect that it never worked for me perfectly. Like, it was always flawed to me, because you play these like little weird mini games in trials, and they always just came across so clunky and weird. And it was like, in Phoenix Wright, it's just like, okay, the witness is testifying, they say something that contradicts a piece of evidence, you show them that piece of evidence, and then your character talks about how that's a contradiction. In these, it's like, oh, the characters are like talking in real time, and all their lines of dialogue float by on the screen, moving around on the screen, and the camera is like swooping around everywhere, and you need to take out your fact bullets and put them into your fact gun, and you need to aim at the specific phrase that has the contradiction and shoot it with a bullet that has like lag when it comes out, so you can miss with facts in this game. You can take a fucking L. And there's these dumb fucking mini games. Hangman's Gambit can go suck my fucking dick. It's so stupid. The famous ProZD video. How do you think this person committed the murder? I think they did it with a knife. But can you spell the word knife? And it's like, you have to play this shitty little mini game where it like zooms into the character's head, and they're like thinking about a bunch of like letters floating around on screen, and you have to like spell the word of the thing that your character is thinking about. It's really fucking stupid, and it gets even worse. I think, was it V3 that had the absolute worst one, where the letters, it's like if the letters touch each other, they like turn into one big letter, and that's the only way you can actually activate the letter. But then if they two different letters touch, then they explode and it hurts you. And it's like, man, I just want to solve these stupid fucking mysteries. Yeah, the rhythm ones, oh my god. Yeah, the rhythm ones, that was 2. Okay, yeah. Hangman's Gambit in 2 fucking sucked dick. And there's like the logic dive. The logic dive was inoffensive. It wasn't like frustrating, but logic dive, a lot of these minigames, it's like, it's supposed to be a minigame that's like showing your thought process of like how you're arriving at this conclusion, but it's always, at least for logic dives, it seemed like it was always the most like basic shit. Like it was all like really obvious stuff. Maybe that was just me personally. Again, the way logic works in a mystery game is going to be different from person to person, obviously, but a lot of the things that they had me like, oh, you gotta think down these different paths, and it's like, there was nothing about that I didn't know before we did the logic dive. And then yeah, the logic taxi in V3, where you pick up your character imagines themselves driving a taxi in this like neon vaporwave Las Vegas world and there's like whores standing in the road, like literally just whores, that all represent a certain idea, and you need to pick up the correct idea whore. And they're very weird. The mini games are just so clunky and bad and weird. I really have very few fond memories of any of them. Sorry, I gotta blow my nose one more time here. Yeah, you pick up the thought whores and they go, good! So the little mini games and just the moment to moment gameplay in the class trials, I found it to be really annoying and frustrating a lot of the time. It was either boring and pointless or really annoying and frustrating. There's still a few like satisfying sort of Ace Attorney-esque moments with where you gotcha, with this perfect piece of evidence that contradicts what you just said. But overall, I was really disappointed with how the like trial mechanics worked, and I think it was like they tried to solve a problem that wasn't a problem, basically, by making it more complicated with these little mini games. They were just silly and stupid. I don't know. But really, let me talk good stuff, because there is good stuff. Danganronpa has fantastic music, great atmosphere, I think. And the music definitely contributes to that atmosphere too. Like the first game in particular has this really strong sense of sort of isolation atmosphere that is really compelling, I think. Genuinely really compelling. And to these games' credit, I always did want to see what was going to happen next. However, that kind of bit me in the ass when the game kept just sort of doing, a lot of modern media does this thing where it's like, oh, we're hinting at a big future mystery. And then it's like, when you get to the big future mystery, it was either a fake out, or it ends up being kind of meaningless, or it ends up being like a plot hole sometimes. I don't know. Somebody said something that I'd like to talk about here. The art has a very strange, almost gross vibe that is very good. I'm not like 100% with the art. I totally get that like grossness though. Especially in the second game. Hold on. Something about the way the characters' faces look is kind of weird and gross sometimes. There is a strangeness to the art style, and it's unique enough. Oh, cool! That's Gonta getting. Wow! Thank you, Google Images. Cool. The art is decent. Like it works for what it's meant to do, but there are also things in these games where I feel like they hate the fucking concept of actually animating something frame by frame. Whenever there's animations in these games, it's always like motion tweens. And sometimes it just looks like absolute ass. Like in Danganronpa 2, the overworld has this like side-scrolling bit where your main character is like running from side to side. And it's like, man, can you guys just draw this character running for like a 10 frame long running animation loop instead of having this weird fucking like puppeteer style where it's all motion tweened. It's just one drawing that's being like morphed to look as though it's moving. It's like, ugh. It just looks like, it looks like a paper cutout. It looks terrible. Somebody said, I might be weird, but I kind of love how ass it looks at times. I kind of get that. And frankly, a lot of my enjoyment of Danganronpa was kind of similar to like the enjoyment you get from like a trashy slasher flick, where it's like a bunch of big, colorful, weird personalities all holed up together, being weird with each other, and slowly getting picked off in sort of this trashy kind of dumb way. And sometimes you're laughing with the game, sometimes you're laughing at the game, and sometimes shit works, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it takes on sort of a Kusoge B game type of quality to it. Hajime runs like J-Easy. So I think if you're going into these games and you want to enjoy them, because there are things to enjoy, think about it like that. Think about it like a dumb slasher B movie. I don't know. Most iconic thing in Danganronpa to me is the blood. Yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know if this gets them any points in like censorship in Japan or something, with like the rating, like age rating for the game. But whenever there's blood, it's like bright pink. It's this like bright magenta type of color that looks very visually striking. It is iconic. But that makes me think of in anime when a character throws up and it's like rainbow is coming out of their mouth. I think they do that for similar reasons, where they're trying to or like Mortal Kombat, where the characters, when they get hit, or I think actually the example that we had on the channel was Darkstalkers, where sometimes in Darkstalkers, if you get hit by like a sword attack, you would like bleed, and then they changed that in America to be white, so it looks like there's cum shooting out of them. I don't know. There's a lot of conflicting statements about why the blood is pink. A lot of people say it's just because they wanted it like that. Yeah, I don't know. But regardless, even if it does serve a function, it is also pretty iconic. You gotta admit. Somebody talk about like the gross sprites starting in the second game and carrying on into the third game. Whoever the fucking like sprite artist was like, yeah, every character needs to have a sprite of like snot flying out of their nose and like spit flying out of their fucking mouth, where they're like drooling and snotting. And I don't know why they decided to do that. It feels gross and almost like, I want to say like fetishistic at a certain point. I don't know why the fuck they did that, but there are some things that are just kind of like off-putting about it, I guess. So how exactly do I go about doing this? Because we gotta rank each individual game. I gotta blow my nose. I'm not gonna mute. Fuck you. Yeah, all the executions have a really perverted quality to them. That's another thing that is really, again, yeah, feels kind of fetishistic or something. I also kind of, again, in a weird sort of cheap, sleazy way, I kind of enjoy that tonal aspect of the series where it's like these characters are like fighting for their fucking lives, and Monokuma, the teddy bear, is constantly being like super cartoony and goofy, you know, and like the scenes where like the characters are like looking on in horror while a character gets like mashed to death by like a squeaky hammer or something, while there's like little ballerina Monokumas dancing around and shit to like goofy music. I think it has that sort of sleazy, almost Nightmare on Elm Street kind of feel to them. And I don't know, it's definitely tonally unique. I can see how it could be incredibly off-putting for a lot of people. But in a weird way, that's almost an aspect of the series that I enjoy the most. Is like the sleazy, shitty vibe of it. Yeah, and the parts of the games where the characters grieve for the dead is always really good. That's so true. That feels so fucked up to say, but it's so true. I like these three spaces are gonna be so hard to like fill in, because I genuinely don't know if I recommend these games or not. I think I'm gonna go ahead and say yes, but with the understanding that they are sleazy and dumb, and some parts of them are really bad. I don't think I regret playing them. I don't think I overall regret playing them. So first game has here's something, is the first game has really great soundtrack, and then in the second and third game they just kind of a lot like these definitely have new soundtrack elements of their own, but they also just like ported over a bunch of songs from the first game, so the songs can get kind of old as you're playing through the series. You know, you're gonna hear that song about 1 million fucking times throughout the series. But First game, I think, is a nice, simple, effective strategy, or effective premise. It's got some nice little twists and turns. I think the endings of each one of these games are so exhausting. The last trial in each game is always, like, I was talking about Phoenix Wright, about how Phoenix Wright has the restraint to not have things get super overblown. These games get super fucking overblown, especially 2 and V3. The ending cases are always just this exhausting fucking thing where it's like twist after twist after twist, and sometimes it feels like the writers are more focused on having mind-blowing twists and plot elements over having a cohesive story that makes basic fucking sense. Yeah, you gotta clear your schedule for the day for each game's chapter 6. Yeah. Oh, God. So, get ready for these games to jump up their own fucking asses, especially for 2 and 3. I also think throughout this series, there's always these sort of little teases and implications about greater events that are happening. You know, about how, you know, things that are happening in the outside world, outside of the school. And I kind of hated the aspect where it had that, somebody said it was like very Moffat-esque. And I agree, where it seems to always be hinting at something in the future, and then it's so excruciating how it never seems to actually deliver on what the fuck is happening in the outside world. And then there's one part in V3 that, thinking back on it, I think is literally just a plot hole. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense, but the ending of V3 exaggerates the fact that, or emphasizes the fact that the writers don't care about making sense anymore. They just don't give a shit. Yeah, mystery box storytelling. It's very mystery boxy. And there's this whole, like, multimedia franchise to Danganronpa. There's, like, anime. There's a side game, Ultra Despair Girls or whatever, that I don't have any plans on playing. There's, like, light novels and a book and the anime and shit. And when I expressed frustration at this sort of mystery box storytelling on stream, people were like, oh, well, yeah, dude, you gotta play the side game and you gotta watch the anime and read the light novels. And I'm like, man, I don't care enough about this fucking world to do all that shit. You know? And I guess, can we just let's talk Danganronpa spoilers, I guess. I'll put the thing up on screen later. Nobody's gonna fucking care about Danganronpa spoilers. But it's like, at a certain point, with the 3 main games, they just were so stingy with actually telling me what the fuck is happening that I felt like, no, you ruined your chance. Like, I'm not gonna go watch the fucking anime and read the light novel and play the side game to understand perfectly what's happening in the outside world. I kind of, like, it's not illegal to do stuff like that, but I kind of enjoy just playing a trilogy and understanding what happened in the trilogy. So let me just collect my thoughts here for a second. I think the first game is really good. It has a really solid atmosphere, I think, better than the other 2 games. It's got some really fucking clunky gameplay, but they all do. I think they all have really clunky gameplay. The characters are enjoyable. The soundtrack is incredible. These games, man, these games would be unplayable without the soundtrack. Like, they are so fucking lucky that they have absolute banger OSTs, because otherwise it's like these games would be flipping fucking burgers right now. They'd be spare coachy, you know, without that soundtrack. Like, they would be so lame. And let me just think here. The ASMR is now saying the word finger over and over again. What is this? No, it's saying Bing Gubling Ghoul. Bing Goobling Ghoul. Okay. It's slightly distracting. Kid named ASMR. What the fuck would I rate this game? I genuinely would probably give it like a 6.5. I don't know. Maybe like a 7. Giving Danganronpa the same score as West of Loathing feels weird. Actually, no. I'll give it a 7. I'll give it a fucking 7. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. I would probably give all of these a 7 in a weird way. So it's the first game's a little basic, but I kind of don't mind that. It like compared to the other ones, it doesn't get quite as like overblown, and the end of game twists are at their most tolerable in the first game. Then 2 is enjoyable. 2 has this sort of fun, like, tropical aesthetic to it. I'm sorry, that was just a burp while I was talking because I'm disgusting. Let me drink water. I seriously think, like, despite all the little differences in these games, I'm gonna rank them, like, all 7s. Because they are mostly similar. I mean, they just have, like, varying specific mechanics, but it's like, when they're changing up the gameplay mechanics, but the gameplay mechanics always suck, it's barely a change. I think the characters in 2 were quite enjoyable. I think the shitbag of 2 is great. 7 is generous. I don't know. I might change it to a 6. Maybe I should change it to a 6.5 at the very least. I think you're right. You're right that 7 is very generous. And then, yeah, the ending case of 2 is kind of stupid. It's one of those ones that if they hadn't gone so far up their own asses about it, it could have been a lot cooler. But they just keep digging with these fucking, like, ending twists. And at the end, it's like, my brain is, like, fried, basically. I guess let's get into spoilers here. I'm gonna... Danganronpa. Let's just put this up real quick, as you know, if anybody cares. Yeah, your brain is fried, but not in a good way. Because in the second game, it's like, oh, this is all, the island is actually a simulation. And the, like, okay, the first game has that nice little through line of, like, you keep finding these pictures. It's like, oh, you thought you didn't know these people at the school, but then you keep finding these pictures throughout the game that imply that you did. You, like, previously, it's like pictures of you and, like, the other students, like, just hanging out, being friends, you know, and laughing. And that was actually quite a fun mystery, and that was one that actually got, like, a pretty satisfying payoff at the end. That was one rare thing that was actually like, okay, that was a cool mystery that was paid off well. It's like, oh, when you entered the school, you got, like, put to sleep, basically, and you were, you got your, like, memory wiped in a certain way. There was, like, a time skip. I don't even really remember the specific details. It's been a bit. But then the second game is like, oh yeah, when you arrived at the school, your brain got, like, put into this, like, simulation, and it turns out that all the students on the island were actually part of this, like, cult of Junko Enoshima, the character from the first game that was, like, a mastermind. Junko Enoshima, whenever she shows up, the games get, like, way fucking worse in 2 and 3. I get the impression that the writers of these games thought that she was just the coolest fucking character, but she's so fucking annoying and cringe, I guess. Cringe is really a great word for it. All those parts where she's, like, swapping between a bunch of different personalities while she's talking, and the voice actress doesn't really know how to handle it, and it's all just so cringe and bad. And every time they bring back Junko Enoshima, it sours the experience. In the first game, she was better, but in 2 and 3, it's just like, bruh. And then it's like, in the second one, it turns out that you are all members of this, like, cult of Junko Enoshima, and, like, the characters from the first game found you and put your brains inside this machine that's like simulating the killing game, and like the people who died in the killing game aren't actually dead, and you have to like, there's like this bargaining phase where you need to like bargain with Junko Enoshima's like computerized ghost, I think, for like, oh, can we like, we get out of the world, but then the people who died will die in real life. And then they like change the deal where it's like, oh, the people who died in the game will come back to life, but then it'll bring back your old memories or some bullshit. It's such a fucking headache. And the last cases of all these games just leave a fucking terrible taste in my mouth. I genuinely would, I don't think I could summarize the ending of 2 because it's so complicated. But it just sort of like went up its own ass. It was what we call wank, I believe. And yeah, somebody's saying I think the anime explained some of the plot of 2. I believe it. I remember hearing Isabel told me that Minami or whatever, the nurse girl, some of the characters have parts of Junko's body like sewn into them. So the nurse girl has Junko Enoshima's has Junko Enoshima's womb inside her body, for instance, and Nagito has Junko's hand and shit like that. A lot of this stuff just felt like twists for twist's sake and felt really like weird and dumb, but I really enjoyed the tropical vibe of the game. I also enjoy how throughout the game there are still some compelling hints and sort of foreshadowing to the fact that this is all taking place inside a simulation. There was that dumb case where you have to like play a PS1 game and solve a real life murder like based on the information you see in the game. And in retrospect, that was a really dumb case, but it was also a very neat little bit of foreshadowing. The whole case with Mikan is fucking terrible, with the despair disease that makes people act irrationally. I don't know. So this one, hold on. Schlock. Is it SCHLOCK? Schlock. Yes, as schlock, I think, is the recommendation status here. Yeah, Mikan is people are hating on Mikan in the chat. Interesting. Did you know that the devs killed the little orange girl in the case 3 last minute? She was an afterthought, that's why they didn't even spend time finding her murder weapon. That's funny. Yeah, and there's oh god, the whole series has that classic Japanese media sort of fan service where it's just like blatantly fetishizing female characters. That shit always left a weird taste in my mouth, and there's like several parts where Mikan is like, "Oh, I fell down and I tied up my legs and my pussy is showing to everyone," and it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, like what am I supposed to what am I supposed to get about this? Like, am I supposed to be like jerking off right now? What do you want me to do, game developers? Or you just want me to sit here and feel awkward? Somebody said feels like the more you explain the games, the less sense they make. Absolutely, and that is also true of the games themselves trying to explain themselves. Anyway, it's yeah, I'm not playing a mystery game to come, bro. Is it funny? Is it horny? It certainly isn't plot. Yeah, anyway. And there's also the classic, in the second game, there's the pervert character. He's the pervert. He loves to be a pervert. And it's like, oh my god, like this would be an acceptable character archetype if it wasn't the most overdone fucking thing. They're always the most obnoxious fucking characters in every fucking anime. Why is it so standard of Japanese media? I feel such culture shock when I see shit like that. Anyway, Danganronpa 2, I wanted to say it was the best in the series. Let's just give this one also a 6.5. A lot of these, it's just like, there are things that are better about the previous games, and there are things that are worse than the previous games. Like, I think this one doesn't have quite the same strong sense of, like, atmosphere to it that the first game had. I don't think either of these have the same kind of atmosphere as the first game. But, yeah, this is a series, I've never seen a series that was so determined to, like, not improve over time. You know, like Phoenix Wright, those games didn't really necessarily improve over time because it was already pretty great from the first game. But it's like playing Danganronpa 1, I was like, okay, this is the first game in a trilogy. Surely the second and third game are like way better and fix a bunch of the annoying shit about this first game. And then it's like they changed a bunch of shit, but none of it is as good, or none of it is better. They're so determined to not improve that it's astounding. It's truly astounding. It's inspiring even. So I guess I'll give that a 6.5, and then Danganronpa V3, Killing Harmony. This one had, I think this one had some, actually, I say that, but I think it had actually some improvements in the gameplay department over 2. I think I would like to also note before I forget that there was a part near the end of V3 on the Switch version that literally I barely ran. It essentially didn't run. Like it went down to like 5 frames per second, or worse than that. It was like stuttering and lagging so hard. It was like, literally, did they playtest this part on the Switch port? Because originally these were what, PSP games, PS Vita, something like that. It like straight up, like I was unsure if we were going to be able to complete the game. Yeah, Vita. Yeah, performance issues on a fucking visual novel that was originally on PS Vita. Huh? Danganronpa V3 makes me feel such extreme emotions. I think this game had some of the most fun characters. I think visually it looks a bit better than the other games. Just like just the fidelity and the character portraits and everything just looks and feels a little bit better. The cases in this game, like Phoenix Wright has some fucking goofy cases, but oh my god, are there some fucking cartoonish murders in Danganronpa V3. And this is a big spoiler that I'm going to be talking about here. So seriously, back off if you don't want to hear about this. If you're planning on playing this series, this is a spoiler that happens quite early on. The whole, I didn't mind the whole fake out of the character that you start the game as gets like basically framed for murder, and you play as a different guy throughout the rest of the game. But holy fuck, everybody's talking about like the seesaw effect. Kaede, I'm gonna say it, Kaede deserved to die for attempting murder like that. Like, she thought that was a legit method of killing someone, and the worst part is it almost worked. Like, she straight up deserved to die for that murder attempt. Like, holy fucking shit. I know it didn't actually happen, and then she got, like, what was her name? Like, Sumugi or something? She, like, interfered, and, oh my god, though. That whole sequence with, like, the ball, the, like, metal ball rolling down, and then I also felt cheated, like, the game, like, lied to me, basically. With the part where it's like, oh, she's leaving the classroom, and it's like, there's a couple of like little hints that like, oh, she's the one like trying to do the murder during this part. But the bit where it says like, oh, she was holding the shot put ball, and then she put everything, it's like, a few sentences later it says she put everything she was holding in her bag and then left. And then it's like later when they're in the classroom that has that like air duct in it. I'm sorry if you don't know what I'm talking about here. This is just commiserating with people who have played the game. It's like while they're investigating, she sets up the books. Somebody said Rube Goldberg ass murder. And she she like stacks these books in such a way that the ball somehow like magically rolls down them like a ramp. And she's in the classroom and they're like leaving to go investigate or something, and there's this duct in the corner of the room and it says like Kaede dropped everything she was holding or something and left the room or something like that, and that's her putting the shot put ball into the vent to roll down and roll on the pile of books and roll down and fall on that guy's head. And it's like the timing, the sheer fucking timing of, yeah, I'm gonna know exactly when this guy is standing here, leaning forward, looking at the camera, to know exactly when this ball should be dropped on his head. The ball could have just as easily fallen to the side of him. And you know how I know that? Because it literally did. Like, it was, I felt so validated when later on in the game, it was like, yeah, her goofy-ass murder strategy, the ball missed him because what a stupid fucking way to kill someone. Like, how could you possibly... It's shocking that she even got that close. I don't know. So that part all just felt kind of stupid, and there was a lot of similar kind of stuff later on in the game, too. It just had the most extreme, ridiculous murder cases, and... that was enjoyable in its own schlocky kind of way, but it was also frustrating when you're actually trying to solve the mystery. There were some very frustrating character moments. I'm gonna say it. The little magician girl sucked. She was fun when she wasn't impeding a case directly. That was another situation. So there's a part in one of the cases where it's like, oh, there's like a magic trick and somebody died during this magic trick going off. And there's this little girl who's like the ultimate magician, and her bit is that she constantly insists that she's not a trick magician, it's actually real magic, and she's a mage. And when you see that, you're like, aw, you know, that's so cute, that's so funny, you know, what a cute little character gimmick. She just insists that it's actually magic. And then it's like, okay, you little dumb shit. We are going to die if we don't solve this murder case. And you're sitting there going, it's magic, it's real magic, I can't tell you how the trick was done because it was real magic. And you just want to fucking strangle her. Like, that was the most frustrating shit. And that's another situation where it's like these characters, I hate when characters act just completely irrational. Like, that just drives me insane, especially in a murder case. You know, I just hated that. You are going to die. Like, we are all going to be horribly murdered. Is it really so important that you keep up this facade of it's real magic and you're a mage? Like, oh my god. Yeah, and the mech case, yeah, oh god. It was just like, that was another, it feels like the writers are trying so hard to be like mind-blowingly creative and crazy, and it just ends up being kind of a fucking mess. And then the end of this game is really, really stupid. I've heard a bunch of people say like, oh, I really liked it, and like, that's awesome. It was so dumb. Allow me to attempt to explain kind of what's happening at the end of V3. It turns out that in the universe of Danganronpa, there is like a TV show called Danganronpa. And what we have been playing as video games are basically gamified versions of this TV show. It's like a reality show that people watch. And it's like all these little hints of like, oh, the outside world is like super destroyed and everything's all fucked up. The outside world is actually fine. They just participate in this weird killing game thing where people get their memories erased and somebody said in all caps, in the universe of V3, not the rest. pardon me, I'm sure I'm going to get things that are technically wrong in terms of like the lore of Danganronpa. This is my attempt to explain this fucking 9-lane pile-up of an ending, okay? Just forgive me in advance. It's like the characters in the games are volunteers. They're people who volunteered to be part of the killing game. They get their memories erased and then they get like implanted with these like false memories of a life they never actually lived, and they get given these ultimate talents. And actually V3, the V in V3, and I'm not making this up, is meant to represent a 5, because Danganronpa V3 Killing Harmony is not the 3rd season of this TV show. It is the 53rd season of the TV show that people watch about people killing each other. And the characters in the game, so there's a character who's like the ultimate cosplayer, and it's established early on that she can't, like, she's great at like, you know, making these cosplays, but she can't make like a disguise and disguise as someone else, because she like gets a rash on her body when she tries to dress up as a real person. And it's shown she tries to dress up like Kaede, and she gets like this horrible rash on her body. Which I think, in the end, that's just a plot hole, right? Like, that's just a plot hole, because then at the end of the game, they're like, actually, she can cosplay as the other characters because they're all fictional characters. But when you say that, it sounds like they're being like meta, like, oh, these characters are realizing they're part of a fiction. But really, it's like they're realizing that they are fictional characters in the sense that they had their memories wiped and replaced with fiction, basically. In the universe of Danganronpa, in the Danganronpa TV show, they had their memories replaced. And so they are technically fictional. She was lying. How did she lie with her skin? How did she make her skin do that? Because it literally shows her. It literally shows her covered in a like horrible red rash. You literally see it with your eyes. Yeah, lying with a rash. And so the other thing, by the way, that I was talking about earlier when I was in non-spoiler talk, where I was like, I think it's literally just a plot hole, and maybe I'm wrong here, but the part where you do that stupid little sewer, like, escape, like, platformer sequence, and they find, it's like the currently remaining characters in the game, like, find a door to the outside world, and they look out, and it's like, it's an apocalypse setting, you know, where it's like, it's just, everything is completely destroyed, there is no other life on Earth, they feel the hot wind of apocalypse on their face. But then later, it's like, that was just... What was that? What was that? What was that? Like, no, what was that, though? Because by the end of the game, it's like, oh, actually, the outside world is fine. They're just a little bit fucked up because they watch this killing game show. Everybody's obsessed with the killing game show called Danganronpa. So what was that? The staff worked very hard on that. It was an apocalypse. V3 isn't real. But isn't it? I never got the impression that it actually wasn't real. Right? I got the impression that the stuff that they showed at the end of the game of like the outside world watching the show Danganronpa, that was the real world. That was like the final real world. But it's so incredibly confusing that I'm sure I'm getting plenty of stuff wrong here. It's just, I think it goes to show how fucking obtuse and confusing it is that I played the game and I feel like I barely understand what happened. I don't know. I don't know. That part where they see the outside world to me feels like a plot hole, but I'm not sure. And yeah, basically the end of the game is just a big fucking car wreck. And the whole series has had this thing where they keep fucking waxing philosophical about uh, hope and despair. You are going to get, oh my god, if you play these games, you are going to get so fucking sick of hearing the words hope and despair, 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 just over and over and over again. And literally the end of Danganronpa V3 ends with like a first-person shooter battle with a robot flying around the screen, and there's just like a crowd in the background just chanting hope, despair, hope, despair, hope, despair. And it's like, it's the ultimate schlock. Like, it just disappears up its own ass. And it really is a clusterfuck. I can see, like, if this kind of like concept of like the game ends with the characters realizing that they are fictional characters, that could have been handled so much better by infinitely more talented writers, but I literally just feel like the writers of Danganronpa don't have the talent for that. Like, they literally just don't have the fucking like writing skills to pull something like that off. And so it also just kind of, that's the ultimate fuck you to like the mystery box style storytelling too, where it's like, oh well, Danganronpa V3 ends with basically a clusterfuck that like throws a match on the plot of all the rest of the series for me. So like, especially like when people are like, oh, you know, watch the anime, read the light novel or whatever. After playing V3, I'm not willing to care any more than the fucking developers of the game cared. And it seemed like the developers of the game shit themselves and lit the fucking franchise on fire with that ending. So, I don't know. It was really like the comment in the chat, all caps. Yes, the writers suck. They fucking suck. But it also was in a sort of ironic way. It was very entertaining to see the game just shit its pants. So after all that was a rant. But I am just gonna give them all 6.5s. They're such schlock and they're so weird and dumb sometimes. But that is kind of, in a weird way, part of their charm. They're super rough around the edges, and the series barely improves over time, if at all. But I don't regret playing them. I don't necessarily regret playing them. All right, let's get this spoiler thing off here. God, I guess I can also talk about like the bonus modes, the like new game plus that's like non-canon where there's like silly dialogue, and then there's like the beach crossover game. I have no interest in playing that. Those are like, truly, why would you fucking play those? Because it's like the mysteries and the intrigue and the characters are sort of like the best actual good parts of the games, and then in those side modes it's like, what's the fucking point? God, yeah, and V3 has the sex hotel. Oh, Jesus. We can't keep going on about this. If Junko saw you right now, she'd talk about how the number 6.5 fills her with despair, and then she'd, like, cum her pants, right? Anyway. Let's move on. Last game of today. I'm gonna blow my nose again. Who did we even get for the hotel? We got Chunko, the fucking misandrist girl. I forget her name. The like karate girl. It wasn't karate. Okay. Let's move on. Let's talk about Persona 5 Royal. Yeah, Tenko. Persona 5 Royal, I'm gonna go ahead and say this was kind of a mixed bag for me. Unfortunately, I think it's possible that sometimes when I go into games that I've heard great things about, it's funny because when I went into Phoenix Wright, I really didn't have any expectations for it, and then it like blew me away. And then playing Persona 5 Royal, I was kind of like, sometimes I think I can and I try really hard to not have this happen, but I think I can have like really high expectations for a game because I've heard it be like so hyped up to me, and then it's like actually playing it, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I gotta calm down. This was definitely a mixed bag. I think it's not the kind of game for me. I think my favorite thing about this game was just the story and the characters and hearing the characters talk. The voice acting is great. The translation is great. All the dialogue is pretty fantastic. And I really enjoyed the overarching. This is another game kind of like Phoenix Wright 1 and 3, where it's got a really nice sort of scaling arc over time. I think it ends kind of in an overblown like anime shonen type of way, where you're using the power of friendship to kill God again. Like, how many times is Japan gonna do this trope? To kill a god. But I enjoyed the story beats. I enjoyed the sort of redemption arc of the main character. But it was all the gameplay that I really I didn't glom with very well. I didn't really like doing all the social link stuff and all the stuff where you're just like running around. I didn't like the parts where the game just went, okay, go kill a month. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm just supposed to like bumble around basically. And like, I had Isabel there. By the end of this game, Isabel was doing most of the gameplay because I wasn't very interested in it, and Isabel was way more interested. That's how it works out. Sometimes it's nice to play a game with another person because they can carry the parts that you're not interested in. I just didn't like all the like walking around, oh, you gotta like get a smoothie on Sunday and you gotta talk to the person and level up your friendship with them. I liked watching the characters actually talk to each other, but all the like technical aspects, I felt like if I had played this on my own, I would have been driven insane by like my min-maxing brain, I feel like, because I would just constantly feel like I was squandering time and like doing things wrong. I don't know. And I feel like that would have just driven me insane, and it kind of did like low-key drive me insane over the course of the game. And I also am just not a big fan of like JRPG standard like turn-based combat. I think this game, it did have fun aspects to it. I liked the guns. Something that blew my fucking mind about this game, because I played Royal, and Royal is like an enhanced edition of the original game that has extra content and changes and stuff. Hearing about how they changed bullets and how guns work in Persona 5 Royal was mind-blowing, because apparently in the original version of the game, in order to restock on bullets, you have to like leave the dungeon? Which means that, like, unless you're constantly leaving the dungeon to refuel your bullets, bullets are almost never going to have any impact on the gameplay at all? Like, that just feels like awful design. And then in Royal, it's like bullets are refreshed every battle. Every fight that you get into, I think, or maybe it's every save point, I don't remember, but it's like the bullets get refreshed way more frequently, and you can actually use them. Like, do people playing the original game just not fucking use bullets? Like, I don't understand. Yeah, it is every fight, okay. Or use an extremely rare item to refill them. And it's like the guns are such a cool mechanic to like the JRPG fights that I was like, why? That just feels like a mistake in the original. Like, whatever. And I enjoy that, like, each character has their own different kind of guns. You know, Joker has, I think, just a pistol, like a, 6-chamber pistol, but then An has, like, the spread gun that shoots multiple enemies. I enjoy, like, taking down enemies that have wings with guns. I like the one that has, like, a rocket launcher that's, like, a single ammo but does a ton of damage. I don't know, that shit was fun. I enjoyed the baton pass mechanic. I think the JRPG gameplay was definitely like my favorite part of the gameplay of this game, but even then, it didn't enthrall me the same way that like Omori did, or even Hylix 2. For some reason, I remember really enjoying the RPG like turn-based combat of Hylix 2, where it was like super stat effect based. But all the stuff about like evolving your fucking Pokemon and like executing them and turning them into other ones, and all the like Pokemon like type differences and shit, all that stuff was just kind of mind-numbing to me, honestly, and I'm glad that I had Isabelle there to do that stuff for me. So yeah, it was overall, it was like they mixed together two different types of game that neither of which really do it for me, frankly. But again, just hearing like the dialogue and the way characters interact with each other and the overarching story, that was my favorite part of it. It was definitely a very engaging story. The game is very, and this is well documented, the game is very clean in its visual design. The menus are fantastic. I love all the sound design and all the little tink tink tink, you know, the little sounds of the menus. I think the menu where you buy guns in Persona 5 is better than some entire video games. Is that weird to say? I love that menu. Somebody said it's dripping with its style. It's dripped out, man. It's the whole visual aspect is great. The art, the little animations that you see sometimes in between chapters, all the character dynamics I really enjoyed. Yeah, that was the meat of the game for me, was the part where you're not actually playing a game. So take what you will from that. Again, it got kind of overblown by the end. But I didn't really mind that much. One thing about this game, I would have been so much more into the specific, like, both halves of the gameplay with, like, the, you know, the life sim aspect and the JRPG aspect if this game was 1/3 the length. Because I know Persona 5 Royal has, like, an extra dungeon at the end and it adds extra stuff on, but holy shit, I was so ready for this game to end by the time it ended. Something about like these really fucking long games, it just breaks me. It just breaks me inside. Like and listen, everybody knows Persona 5 got a fucking fantastic soundtrack, but it's one of those soundtracks where I don't actually want to listen to it after playing the game because I've heard all of those songs 1,000 times. It's like all those fantastic songs I've heard more times than I ever want to in my entire fucking life. So, I don't know. There were just a lot of aspects of this game that I just felt weren't for me. And, you know, maybe I could have handled the length better if the moment-to-moment gameplay was more enjoyable to me personally, but it just wasn't that, I don't know. It just didn't stick with me, or it didn't glom with me. People were making fun of me for using the word glom. I'll say it again, glom. I did play the bonus dungeon, I believe. And it was cool, and I like all the character stuff. Like I said, it was great, but yeah, and it also doesn't help that you hear Persona music used so much outside of the series. Yeah. So it just, I acknowledge that this is a cool game. And I think for people who enjoy that life sim stuff, like Bella was saying, that's like her favorite stuff in the game, and like that's cool. It just personally for me, a lot of the gameplay of this game didn't really work. It just didn't draw me in, and wasn't that kind of like moment to moment satisfying fun that allows me. Because of course, how many hours did I put into Persona 5 Royal? It was like probably like 160. Let me look. Come on, Steam. I have Persona 4 Golden. Oh, I think that's shared over from Isabelle's account, maybe. 135.6 hours, right? And I'm complaining about how long it is. Now let's look at my hours for Portal 1, which is a game that's like 5 hours long. 381.3 hours. So that should go to show you that, like, I'm very willing to play a game for an extremely long period of time, uh, as long as it is very fucking fun, like enjoyable to play. Also, Portal 1 is a bit of a skewed example because Portal 1 was the only game that I had on Steam for quite some time. So back in my era when the only real games that I had access to weren't even real games, they were fucking Flash games, and I got Portal with my like allowance money, and it was the only thing I had on Steam for ages. So I don't know. Yeah, I had a lot of trouble with the puzzles. No, and I like 100%ed it. I did all the challenges. I mean, I used to just dick around in Portal. I used to I would go into like the escape sequence and no clip around. I had so much fun with the console commands. I would like collect all the physics objects in one level, so like all those fucking little chairs and like Xboxes and cans of beans, and I would just make like a gigantic pile of all the physics objects in one room, or destroy them with the Emancipation Grill and shit. So all this is to say that if I'm really, really enjoying myself, yes, I can put up with a game, or I can play a game for an extremely long period of time. Let's look at like Elden Ring playtime. Jesus fucking Christ. I must have left the game open for like a few days or something. It says 459 hours here for Elden Ring. And I have played Elden Ring beyond just what I did on stream. I played a couple other characters of it. I always stop at the fire giant, though. That's always when I get disinterested and go, okay. But when a game is like satisfying to me on a moment-to-moment basis, and it's like, wow, this is really engaging and fun, then I can go for that long. But when a game is like not engaging me on that level, and it just drags on and on like this, It drives me fucking insane, honestly. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So yeah, I didn't mesh well with Persona 5, I think. I would give like a tentative yes. I feel like this yes is also based in like, I feel like most other people are going to have more tolerance for this like life sim high school like romancing type of shit and JRPGs than I do. So I guess that's kind of going into my recommendation thing. Also, it would just feel awful recommending Danganronpa and not Persona. I don't know. For me personally, I'll give this like an 8. I don't know. Actually, no. I'm not gonna try to like sugarcoat it. I'll give it like a 7.5. The story and the characters and the art and the presentation and the music are all really great. It's just the gameplay didn't work for me personally. I think I'll stick with that. It's hard to rank these. It's the numbers, again, I must stress, are not to be thought about too much. Really, the actual review is me talking about the game. So that's that. I think we'll be done for today. I'm certainly tired. I've been going for 2.5 hours talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games in total, which is, horrible efficiency. But I do feel the need to like go more in depth when I haven't actually streamed these games. But I think we'll be done for today. Yes, I'm not actually going to review a single game that I've actually streamed. Fuck you. That's just how I roll, man. It's probably pretty late for you guys. It's probably Halloween for a lot of you guys. It's 10:57 on the 30th for me. And so next time I do reviews, we will either do the Dark Souls series or I will do like bits and pieces, because we've got like, a bunch of games that I played recently are in here. Mario Wonder, Pikmin. I still got to finish Pikmin. Mosalina, Silent Hills, shit like that. It's funny, I said Silent Hills, but that's not a game. I meant Silent Hill 1 and 2. So I might do like a little... next time we'll either do like Dark Souls stuff, or I'll do a bunch of random ones and then like all the pop caps, maybe. I don't know. But that's it for today. I am exhausted. I've been talking for quite some time. Let's go raid somebody, I guess. When the hills are silent.
We're such a good listener.
Oh, yeah, that's a
Thomas.
cool
It makes me feel
ad.
so
That's a
special.
cool
You
ad.
are.
Thank
You
you,
are special.
YouTube.
If you don't mind, if you could just...
Yeah. I think this actually fits with this fucking spinning GIF really well. Sorry, GIF. All right. Let's see. Mike's probably not still streaming, right? Yeah. No way, Jose. FNAF World. We could go raid somebody playing FNAF World. God, the front page of Twitch is so, like, tit-centric. It's got so much titty. Oh, and listen, I'm no prude. I don't mind titty. It's just funny. It's just funny. And, like, VTubers and tits, and VTubers and tits, and VTubers and tits, and VTubers and tits. Oh my god, what the fuck? Okay, the Seinfeld AI-generated bullshit is doing some weird, stupid... What is this, a fucking ARG? What am I looking at? The AI Seinfeld is, like, dead now, and I think the characters just, like, sit there in silence, I'm pretty sure. Let's go raid AI Seinfeld, fuck it. They're, like, in purgatory. Wow. I tried to type "watch me forever" and typed "watch me forever." Okay, let's go raid. Hope you had fun. I certainly had a nice time just talking games. You know, one of my absolute favorite things is just talking games. I love talking games with you guys and just ranting and rambling. And